If you were a teenager in the late 90s or early 2000s, chances are nu metal was all over your world. On the radio, blasting from CD players, on the television. You have to agree, it was everywhere. As daring and popular as it was, nu metal was the anthem of a whole new generation of teenagers who just didn't feel like belonging anywhere at the time. Breaking down barriers between rap and rock, it was loud, rebellious, and impossible to ignore. What's more fascinating is that despite its huge hatred coming from a more conservative audience, nu metal is now remembered as one of the most greatest form of metal that had ever existed. I would even go as far as to say that it was an upgrade for metal music in general, because for many of us, it was the first step into heavier music. That was especially my case. So, in this video, I'm diving into what nu metal was, how it rose, why it faded, and why it still means so much to people like me. The following video that you are about to watch is a mixture of research and personal views, so it's not something that is deeply thorough, and I'm sorry for that, so please be kind. So first and foremost, let's begin with its definition. According to Britannica, nu metal is a subgenre of heavy metal music represented by a fusion of heavy metal instrumentation and hip-hop conventions, such as rap lyrics and turntabling. Nu metal is related to rap metal. And you know what? The definition doesn't stop here. The subgenre is thought to contain intense and angry lyrics, off-pitch guitars, and heavily amplified beats typical of nu metal songs. All of this is very true, but it's a huge misconception to assume that the subgenre was a hybrid between rap and rock solely because of Linkin Park's successful hybrid theory. It is my favorite band and I plan to make a video about them soon, so I won't be saying too much here, but in a bonus track from the 20th edition of the album Hybrid Theory, an unreleased track called Step Up had an interesting message. Mike Shinoda, the band's rapper, clearly acknowledged that this collision of the genre wasn't something new. Rock and hip-hop had been collaborating for years, which is very true.
You're not an MC if someone else writes your lines. Rapping over rock doesn't make you a pioneer, cause rock and hip-hop collaborated for years.
Take 1986 for example. Run DMC and Aerosmith dropped Walk This Way, which is a newer version of Aerosmith's 1975 version of that song. Whether it was special or not, it was a song that had it all. Hip-hop beats, turntable scratches, electric guitars, rapping, singing, and even a bit of screaming. Shortly after, we would have bands in the late 80s normalizing rap verses over rock or funk musical arrangements such as the Red Hot Chili Peppers or Faith No More. Fast forward in the early 90s, more bands such as Rage Against the Machine or Anthrax were incorporating hip-hop elements into the mix. And speaking of Anthrax, their song Bring the Noise with Public Enemy was another example of two worlds colliding.
Get from in front of me, the crowd runs to me, my DJ is warm, he shakes, I call him Norm, you know, he can cut a record from side to side, so with the ride, the glide, to be much safer than a suicide.
And all this hard label have planted the seeds that in the near future will bloom into something big. Quite utopian, isn't it? Well, not really, because remember, we are in the early 90s. Someone was stopping this process, and the culprit was none other than grunge music, led by bands such as Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam. So if you don't know, the grunge scene was mainstream back then, making it the most popular form of rock. It's a bit off topic, but that could be a reason for why every damn clothing brand have Nirvana shirts in their shop. And at the time, everything was great until April 8, 1994, when Kurt Cobain took his own life, bearing with him the mainstream success of grunge and alternative rock. With the field empty, it left room for new subgenres to emerge. With nu metal appearing on the map, it was the place where many grunge heads musically migrated. On October 1994, a few months after Kurt Cobain's passing, something wild happened in Bakersfield, California. A band known as Korn released their debut self-titled album, and this thing right here was fire. Not only that started the genre, but it also helped coin the term nu metal. But when listening to Korn, what is the thing that felt so nu metal about them? To simply answer the question, the thing that was considered metal back then was this. So when you hear thrash and you compare it to this, you are aware that there's a huge difference despite all the common materials. Thrash, unlike nu metal, was technical and had a complex guitar solo section in each song. When listening to Korn, that very same difference can be felt, but this didn't stop the album from being revolutionary at the time. It broke every single rule in metal music, from its sound to the goofy looking fashion that accompanied it. As for each tracks, a lot of songs mixed funk, electro and hip hop too. It was just blended together like a good milkshake. Besides, it also shaped the band's trademark sound, and when you listen to Korn, you are greeted with downtuned guitars that enhances a primal energy, funky bass slaps, old bagpipes, and Korn isn't Korn without Jonathan Davis' mind-blowing vocals. The guy could sing, scream, and make other weird noises that I can't explain. In terms of lyrics, old songs were deeply personal, tackling struggles such as bullying, growing up poor, depression, parental abuse, and many more insecurities. These are the themes that were recurrent in the genre. Overall, the Subtitle album was a masterpiece, launching the start of nu metal. The outcomes were so out of this world that British author Joel McIver once wrote that Korn was almost solely responsible for the tidal wave of changes that subsequently swept the metal scene. Hard to disagree, isn't it? But Korn weren't the only ones, and some credits has to be given to another band. They were active around the same time as them and were mostly an alternative band back then. From Sacramento, California, they were called the Deftones. In 1995, just a year after Korn, they emerged with their debut album entitled Adrenaline, carrying the same raw energy as Korn's, and just like them, the record featured downtuned guitars, groovy bass, and amazing vocals by young Chino Moreno. He flowed between smooth melodies to sudden screams and occasional whispers. Unlike Jonathan Davis, Chino Moreno's voice was haunting and almost hypnotic. His vocals were like a time bomb, calmly ticking until out of nowhere, he'll unleash the beast inside of him. And these two albums, they were like Dante and Virgil from Devil May Cry, brothers yet rivals. And yes, I did that on purpose, because they had similar influences like Faith No More, Ice Cube, Duran Duran, or Dr. Dre. When putting into consideration the musicians that I've mentioned, you can also notice the variety of different horizons that have been explored, extracted, and readapted into their mix. That's how two bands, without noticing it, started nu metal. And so what's funny about it is the fact that both of them rejected the label. Davis in an interview once said, "When we first started, we were like, we're not a metal band, y'all." Then they'd go, "Oh, then you're nu metal. Well, f*** you." As for Chino Moreno, he echoed this in an interview by Sam Dunn as well. And you know what? They had a point. These artists weren't chasing trends. They were creating art. But unfortunately, they couldn't stop what they created. By the late 90s, nu metal was getting more momentum. A wave of new bands began to emerge, each one echoing the musical traits laid down by Korn and Adrenaline. Among these goons, we had Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Static X, or POD. And these are just a few names that I have in mind because I know a lot of other bands, but I'm not really familiar with them, such as Sugar Ray or Powerman 5000. And so that's why here I want to focus on just two albums I know well. Those being $3 Bill Y'all and Slipknot's Self-Titled. When revisiting these records, the classic nu metal sound is unavoidable. You've got more central hip-hop elements like scratching and rapping accompanied with melodic singing and brutal screaming. Add to that the downtuned guitars, the groovy bass, and the brutality of each track. What's different here was their lineup giving more space to hip-hop, especially in Limp Bizkit's case. The thing that should catch your attention here is that both bands have DJs. Think of it for a second. DJs are usually tied to hip-hop groups, so seeing a DJ in a metal band feels too out of place, isn't it? But this is how I assumed that hip-hop gained more centrality in nu metal. Now let's shift our attention to the music. As I've said, it's nu metal, but something was different. Most songs had a warmongering brutality in them. I would even say that both albums were the respective band's heaviest records ever. When listening to songs like Spit It Out or Counterfeit, I'm sure you get my point, but other than that, you can feel the groove mixing with hip-hop smoothly with these two works. All of this was the idea of one man, Ross Robinson, who had also previously worked with Korn and Deftones in the albums that I've mentioned earlier. And that explains also why I instantly like $3 Bill Deal and Slipknot. At the same time, it's impossible not to talk about the mark Ross Robinson left on nu metal. There's a reason why we call him the godfather of nu metal after all. He was there since day one. And just to talk about his genius, it deserves a whole video. But all you need to know here is that this man secured the supremacy of nu metal for the whole rest of the late 90s and the early 2000s. Entering the early 2000s, things seemed to be changing for nu metal. It had achieved mainstream success, many music videos appeared on MTV and on the radio, but music piracy also invited himself in, triggering a huge drop of CD sales. Musicians like Metallica and Dr. Dre filed for a lawsuit and managed to shut down Napster in 2001. They had won against Napster, but haven't won against piracy in general. Nonetheless, nu metal became open to a wider range of people, and not just for these angsty teenagers anymore. With a bigger audience, it became just too commercial, and a form of soft power could be felt. Many video games and movies had nu metal songs, for example. In the example of a movie, I have Matrix Reloaded, the film from 2003, with songs from Linkin Park, Rob Zombie, POD, Disturbed, and Deftones. As for video games, we have many nu metal songs in games such as WWE games and other sports games, and also some on GTA. Soon after, the 2000s were coming to an end. It was clear that this genre was starting to become too outdated, reminding me of a quote by rock legend Jimi Hendrix. Even castles made out of sands fall into the sea eventually. In other words, nothing is eternal. I just love the metaphor impermanence here, that nothing is there forever and won't be trending forever either. In nu metal's case, what was it? What killed it? What made it disappear? For this, there are many reasons, and upon doing my research, I have found two common factors in many sources. The first one being the fact that bands were simply switching genres, just grew tired of that label. One example of this can be Linkin Park. They are my favorite band of all time and played an important role in my upbringing. By the time I was born, so in 2004, the band seemed to be already done with its nu metal phase. Their album Hybrid Theory and Meteora were genre-defining masterpieces, and you couldn't say otherwise. But upon revisiting their third album, Mr. Midnight, that came out in 2007, the work featured many changes, showing a more alternative and pop rock approach. So from there, you already knew that their nu metal parts of the songs like Paper Cut or Hit the Floor were gone, and this didn't go unnoticed. From a commercial standpoint, it was a massive drop because Hybrid Theory, for example, sold 20 million more copies than Minister Midnight, and I'm talking from a worldwide perspective. Despite the figures, the record still had some great songs, I would say.
I've given
So yes, that was a huge musical turn, but it didn't stop the band from going far. Another factor that I can add is the fact that it wasn't just trending anymore and left room for other genres to appear. The two most notable ones were metalcore and post-hardcore, backed up with the whole emo subculture. From then, nu metal slowly got pushed back in the backstage. The genre had disappeared and fractured into different pieces that I personally felt is present on many other genres. The more aggressive and self-alienating aspect was passed on to metalcore, while the more dark and emotional given to post-hardcore. So I think it's a huge misconception to say that nu metal has disappeared. A few months ago, the world welcomed the release of the album The Darkest Place I've Ever Been by French metal band Landmarks. This record right here has been classified as nu metalcore, and I completely agree. And if you don't know what nu metalcore is, it's just a mixture of metalcore and nu metal. And when you listen to the album, you can expect screams, breakdowns, clean singing, and rapping also. And in fact, hip-hop is quite present in these records. With projects like these, I don't believe that anything disappears. It just transforms into something different, or it's simply readapted to a new audience. What's funny about it is that there's a quote that explains my point very well, and it's by French scientist Antoine Lavoisier. Nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. So to wrap things up, nu metal is a musical genre that featured rock with downtuned guitars alongside strong hip-hop, electronic and funk elements. It became popular mainly thanks to teenagers who were the main audience, even though many adults, especially hardcore metal fans, hated it, calling it a softer or dumbed-down version of real metal. Today, whether people love it or not, we have to admit that it changed metal forever. By blending in non-rock elements, it became a gateway for many to get into heavier music. This subgenre was often called weak and radio-friendly, while some songs like Daddy by Korn contained deep lyrics and weren't afraid to talk about taboo topics. So saying that this genre lacked musical depth is a huge misconception. Nu metal wasn't just an anthem for these 2000s angry young men and women, it was something deeper, a portrayal of despair, poverty, racism, and many other abuses that I really don't want to talk about. As I got older, I also had to deal with hard times in my life, and some hardship just won't go. As we deal with these bad thoughts inside of us and listen again to the same songs we liked before, that's when it becomes special. You finally understand the lyrics properly because you are in the rightful place for it. You know that you're not alone in this bullcrap and all of us are in the same boat. From a personal perspective, I felt that despite my birth in 2004, I was late to the party, but it was through watching AMVs that I discovered nu metal, and I've basically grown up listening to these bands ever since. What's funny is that I didn't even know their names, but I will hear all their songs in every single video I clicked. And I guess that's it, all that jumble just to say that I like nu metal. So anyway, thank you for watching this video, and you know, the best way to support my work is to just subscribe, leave a like, and also please make sure to add comments because I'm gonna read all of them, and your tips are really precious to me. So anyway, that was the first time that I tried making a video like that. Be brutally honest, okay? Thank you for watching this video.